Coca-Cola. Have you ever wondered whether a soft drink brand could survive and even grow in the shadow of one of history's darkest regimes? The story of Coca-Cola and Nazi Germany isn't just a little-known chapter in business history. It's a vivid reminder of how blurred the line between ethics and profit can become. If you've ever enjoyed a bottle of Fanta without knowing it was created during some of humanity's darkest years, this story may change the way you see that orange drink forever. And at the end, ask yourself, in times of turmoil, should a company do whatever it takes to survive or take a stand for its principles? When Hitler came to power, Coca-Cola was already a popular drink in Germany, from small cafes to the grand stage of the 1936 Berlin Olympics. Amid rising nationalist propaganda, the head of Coca-Cola Germany, Max Keith, made a careful choice: stay out of politics, please the authorities, and keep the business running. But when World War II began, a trade embargo from the United States cut off Coca-Cola's syrup supply to Germany. Facing the brink of collapse, Keith had to get creative, and that's how Fanta was born. Using leftover ingredients like apple fiber, whey, and beet sugar, they created a pale golden soda with a surprisingly sweet taste. The name Fanta came from the German word Fantasie, meaning imagination. In a country isolated by war, Fanta was promoted as a symbol of German self-reliance. It quickly became a household favorite, served at family tables, in army camps, and in kitchens across the nation. A journalist of the time once remarked, "If Coca-Cola represents America, then Fanta is the drink Germany invented to rival it." Ironically, a product born in a time of dictatorship out of creativity under crisis would later become a proud part of Coca-Cola's global legacy. When the war ended and Allied forces entered Berlin, Fanta's production stopped. Max Keith wasn't punished. In fact, he was praised for keeping Coca-Cola Germany alive. He immediately sent a telegram to Atlanta. "Coca-Cola GmbH is still operational. Please send auditors." Within just a few years, Coca-Cola returned to the German market, reintroducing the authentic American drink while cleverly using Fanta's popularity to rebuild its business. By 1955, the company revived Fanta in Italy, with a fresh orange flavor this time, with no ties to its wartime origins. But history isn't so easy to erase. In 2015, Coca-Cola Germany launched a campaign called Fanta Classic, the original 1940 flavor, inviting consumers to return to the good old days. What sounded harmless at first quickly caused public outrage, because those old days referred to the Nazi era. The company soon apologized and withdrew the campaign. Once again, history reminded the world that some pasts can't be recycled into marketing slogans. Today, Fanta stands as one of Coca-Cola's best-selling brands, with over 180 flavors around the globe. Yet for historians, each bottle still represents a paradox, the tension between creativity and conscience in business. Born from war, driven by survival, and absorbed into global commerce, Fanta's story shows how memory can fade, much like the drink's flavor itself. Before we end, here's a question for you, a small quiz from history. If you were Max Keith back then, standing in the shadows of dictatorship, what would you choose? Stop production and uphold your morals? Keep the company alive at any cost? Or try to find a third way, where ethics and survival could somehow coexist? Share your answer in the comments. Because sometimes, even a simple bottle of orange soda can hold one of the biggest ethical questions of the century. IBM. Have you ever wondered how a machine once hailed as a milestone of human progress could also help a dictatorship calculate the loss of life? The story of IBM and Nazi Germany is one of the coldest and most unsettling relationships in the history of technology, when data became a weapon and human beings were reduced to numbers punched onto cards. Stay until the end. Then share your thoughts. Do you believe technology is truly neutral, or does it always carry the imprint of the hands that control it? In the early 1930s, IBM was America's leading tech company, while Nazi Germany sought to control every detail of its society. Their paths crossed in Berlin, where IBM's Hollerith machine became the perfect tool for Hitler's administration: fast, precise, and emotionless. This seemingly harmless device processed millions of population records through punch cards. Each small hole represented a piece of personal information: religion, profession, ethnicity, health status. When the regime began its population purification campaign, the system was adapted to identify Jewish people, Roma, and other targeted groups, automating every step of the state's machinery. At each concentration camp, including Auschwitz and Dachau, there was a holorith room, where staff recorded information about prisoners, their arrival date, condition, and, tragically, their loss of life. Each person was assigned a punched code. Number 8, Jewish. Number 12, Roma. Number 6, lost during gas exposure. When the cards were completed, they were stamped Holorith Erfasst, recorded by Holorith. The constant clicking of the machine echoed day and night, the mechanical heartbeat of a bureaucracy that turned people into data. Historian Edwin Black, author of IBM and the Holocaust, once wrote, "Without IBM's technology, the Holocaust would still have happened, but not with the same speed and scale." IBM didn't take lives directly, but its tools made the system far more efficient. After the war, IBM denied any wrongdoing, claiming its European branches had operated independently. However, business records showed that the company continued to supply parts, maintenance, and training throughout the war, suggesting it was not entirely unaware. IBM's founder, Thomas J. Watson, even received the German Eagle Medal from Hitler in 1937, only to return it 3 years later, for ethical reasons. But could returning a medal ever make up for the lives lost? IBM's story remains a defining case in discussions about corporate responsibility and technology. It raises a timeless question: can a company truly claim innocence when its inventions are used to enable harm? That question still echoes in the rhythmic clicks of the old Holorith machines now displayed in Holocaust museums. Ironically, IBM's punch card technology, once used to manage data during one of history's darkest chapters, became the foundation of modern computing. From the ruins of Auschwitz, humanity went on to build the digital age. Yet the question remains: is technology truly neutral, or only neutral until a human hand touches the keyboard? General Motors. In the history of 20th century business, there are chapters that even the world's largest corporations would rather erase from collective memory. One of them is the story of General Motors and Nazi Germany, when an American industrial icon became part of one of the most devastating war machines in modern history. This isn't just a story about trucks and assembly lines, it's a dark symphony where technology, profit, and ethics collided. A company born from the American spirit ended up fueling Hitler's dream of dominance not with weapons, but with wheels. Stay until the end and share your thoughts. In today's globalized world, is there truly such a thing as politically neutral profit, or is that just a polite phrase for complicity? By the late 1922, Germany's economy was shattered after World War I, and Opel, the nation's automotive pride, was on the brink of bankruptcy. General Motors, pursuing global industrial expansion, bought a majority stake in Opel in 1929, bringing with it American-style mass-production technology. A few years later, when Adolf Hitler came to power, he saw the automobile industry as a political tool, one that could create jobs and prepare for rearmament. The regime celebrated what it called mechanized civilization, and Opel, with its high efficiency, became a key piece in Germany's new industrial engine. Hitler once declared, "The strength of a nation lies on its wheels." Ironically, those wheels turned thanks to capital and engineering from Detroit. Throughout the 1930s, Opel, under GM control, produced tens of thousands of Opel Blitz trucks each year. These vehicles became central to the infamous Blitzkrieg campaigns. The company's plants also helped produce engines for the Junkers Ju-88 bomber. Meetings between GM executives and senior Nazi officials, including Hitler and Goering, strengthened cooperation. In 1938, Germany's government even awarded James D. Mooney, GM's European representative, the Order of the German Eagle, the highest honor for foreigners who had contributed to Germany. Meanwhile, at GM's U.S. headquarters, CEO Alfred P. Sloan maintained a chillingly detached position. He once stated, "Our business is not influenced by politics." A simple sentence, yet it allowed thousands of vehicles to keep rolling toward the front lines. When the war began, Opel continued production for the German military. Even after the United States entered the conflict, the German subsidiary remained under direct control of Hitler's government. Evidence later showed that Opel executives kept indirect communication with GM through intermediaries in Switzerland. By 1944, nearly a quarter of Opel's workforce consisted of forced laborers, prisoners, and civilians taken from occupied territories. They worked under brutal conditions, up to 14 hours a day, amid constant air raids. An Allied report noted they starved inside the factories, beside the very trucks they assembled for the German army. When World War II ended, Opel's factories lay in ruins. The Brandenburg plant was dismantled and shipped to Moscow by the Soviet Union as war reparations, while the Rüsselsheim plant in the American zone was quickly reclaimed by GM. And perhaps most astonishing of all, General Motors faced no prosecution. In fact, in 1948, the U.S. government compensated GM with $32 million for wartime damages, including facilities that had directly served the German military. American newspapers at the time remarked bitterly, "GM, the only company that profited from both sides of the war." In the post-war years, GM distanced itself from responsibility, insisting Opel had merely been forced to cooperate. But historians, such as Henry Ashby, Turner, and Edwin Black, later proved otherwise. Opel had not only complied, but actively collaborated to protect its profits. By 2000, under growing pressure from Holocaust survivor organizations, GM contributed to the Remembrance, Responsibility and Future Fund, a $5.2 billion effort to compensate those who had been forced into labor in German factories. It was a late but necessary gesture toward accountability. Today, the relationship between General Motors and Nazi Germany stands as a powerful case study in corporate ethics during crisis. Opel brought American manufacturing expertise to Europe, helping Germany modernize, yet in doing so, it also turned technology into an instrument of war. In several World War II museums, the Opel Blitz is still displayed not only as a symbol of German industry, but as a reminder of corporate silence in the face of wrongdoing. And perhaps the most unsettling truth isn't the image of trucks rolling beneath a swastika, but the fact that they kept rolling, as long as the engine of profit kept them moving. Mercedes-Benz. In the history of German industry, Mercedes-Benz stands as a symbol of engineering excellence, but also one of the darkest examples of how business and authoritarian power can intertwine. During the Nazi era, the three-pointed star shone not only in grand parades led by Adolf Hitler, but also deep within the machinery of war and propaganda. The gleaming Mercedes-Benz 770K cars that carried the dictator through cheering crowds became icons of absolute power, while behind the scenes, the company's factories worked day and night to produce trucks, engines, and military equipment powered by forced labor. This is not just the story of a car manufacturer, but a pact between technology and authority, between prestige and ethics, where mechanical beauty became a tool for oppression. Stay until the end and share your thoughts. Can a company ever be truly neutral in the face of wrongdoing, or does silence itself become a form of complicity? When Hitler rose to power in 1933, the Nazi government set out to rebuild Germany through industry and propaganda. Mercedes-Benz, already the pride of German engineering, quickly became a strategic partner of the regime. The government poured money into automobile and infrastructure projects like the Autobahn, and in return, Mercedes-Benz supplied the state with parade vehicles, military trucks, aircraft engines, and an image of technical superiority. Rather than being forced, company executives actively sought government contracts, adjusted production to meet military needs, and even joined industrial associations that supported the war economy. The brand didn't just serve the Reich, it was elevated by it, becoming a symbol of German industrial power. In parades and propaganda films, Hitler was almost never seen without a Mercedes-Benz. His custom-built Mercedes 770K Grosser became part of his political image, a display of German engineering perfection. But while those scenes dazzled on screen, the reality inside the company's factories in Sindelfingen, Untertürkheim, and Genshagen was far darker. Tens of thousands of forced laborers, prisoners of war and civilians taken from Poland, France, and the Soviet Union were put to work in exhausting conditions producing military components. An Allied report after the war stated, out of every 10 workers on Mercedes assembly lines, 4 were forced laborers. They lived in harsh, overcrowded camps, often without enough food, and many lost their lives inside the very factories where engines of war were built. As the war dragged on, the company became increasingly dependent on this workforce. Mercedes-Benz executives not only accepted the system, they integrated it into their production model to maintain output amid the shortage of German labor. It was one of the darkest moments in automotive history when technical efficiency was valued more than human dignity. After 1945, when Nazi Germany collapsed, Mercedes-Benz, like many major corporations of the time, faced accusations of collaboration and profiting from the regime. Records of forced labor and military production began to surface. Many wartime executives escaped criminal prosecution, but the brand's moral reputation was deeply scarred. In the decades that followed, Mercedes-Benz began confronting its past, sponsoring independent research and contributing to compensation funds for former forced laborers. On its official website, the company acknowledges the actions taken between 1933 and 1945 are an inseparable part of our history. We have a responsibility to remember and to learn from those mistakes. Today, Mercedes-Benz is recognized as one of the world's most prestigious car makers, a symbol of luxury, innovation, and German craftsmanship. Yet in museums and documentaries, the image of Hitler standing in a Mercedes 770K still appears a reminder that technology can never be fully separated from morality. The very innovations Mercedes developed during wartime, from high-performance engines to durable chassis, later shaped civilian and sports car design, proving that science can serve peace even when born from conflict. It's a paradox that endures, a bright, three-pointed star shining across history, but with shadows that will never fully fade. Kodak. Among the lesser-known stories of corporate ties between Western companies and Nazi Germany, Eastman Kodak, the American photography giant, stands out as one of the most thought-provoking. Though Kodak never built weapons or military vehicles, it quietly became part of the Nazi war economy through film rolls, lenses, and chemicals that seemed harmless on the surface. From darkrooms in Stuttgart to offices in Berlin, a company once known for capturing light and preserving memories found its image distorted, turned into a tool for propaganda and war. This isn't just the story of a photography brand, but a reflection on how thin the line can be between technological innovation and moral compromise. Stay until the end and share your thoughts. Can a company truly remain neutral during wartime, or is silence in the face of wrongdoing a choice in itself? By the early 20th century, Kodak had built a strong presence across Europe, especially in Germany, then a hub of industry and science. When Hitler rose to power in 1933, the new government began to Germanize the economy, requiring foreign companies to adapt to nationalist policies in order to survive. Kodak didn't withdraw it, adapted. Its German branch, Kodak AG, changed its slogans, hired staff who fit the racial ideals of the regime, and rebranded itself as part of the New Germany. By the late 1930s, as Europe descended into war, Kodak AG continued to operate normally, supplying film, photographic paper, and chemicals to state institutions, including the German military and propaganda offices. Historians later found that several of Kodak's European subsidiaries used materials sourced from occupied territories to sustain production during wartime shortages. This made the company, intentionally or not, a small yet functioning part of Germany's war economy. Even more troubling, records from Stuttgart and Berlin revealed that Kodak employed forced labor, including prisoners of war and civilians taken from Poland and Czechoslovakia. These workers toiled under harsh conditions, mixing hazardous chemicals and processing film until exhaustion. German historian Carola Fings concluded, Kodak was not a victim of circumstance, it learned to live with it, and even to profit from it. After the war, Kodak's factory in eastern Germany within the Soviet-occupied zone was seized, but in the West, remaining facilities were quickly reclaimed by Kodak's U.S. headquarters and resumed normal operations. There were no trials, no apologies, no comprehensive investigations. During the 1950s and 1960s, Kodak thrived as a symbol of the golden age of American photography, while its wartime past remained buried in silence. It wasn't until the late 20th century that journalists and historians began uncovering the company's activities under Nazi rule. Public pressure eventually forced Kodak to contribute to Germany's forced labor compensation fund, alongside other corporations. However, Kodak never issued a formal apology, stating only that its European branches operated independently during the war. A convenient explanation until one remembers that those same branches continued sending profit reports to Rochester, New York. The Kodak story has since become a symbol of quiet complicity. Without producing a single weapon, the company still supported a regime built on control, propaganda, and exploitation. They didn't pull a trigger, but they clicked a shutter. And through that lens, history captured a chilling truth. Even light itself can be manipulated to hide the dark. Today, Kodak's golden age has long faded, replaced by the digital revolution. Yet, in Holocaust museums and corporate history studies, the Kodak name still appears a reminder that technology, no matter how small, can serve harm if those behind it choose not to question its purpose. From family photos to propaganda reels, the line between art and ethics proved thinner and more fragile than anyone could have imagined.